So I would say that the Escape is probably one of, if not the most underrated disc in disc golf. And it's gained a little bit of popularity now that Kona's been throwing it, but even then, I don't think that this disc gets as much love as it deserves. And now DD's released the Supreme Escape. And even though it has the Escape name, it's not really the same Escape as this. Let's talk about it. Now, the reason I say that the Escape is underrated. Now, the reason I say the Escape is underrated is because it's just effortless distance for just about any skill level. So it's stable enough to where pros can like hyzer flip it, and it's just a very finesse driver. And for amateurs, it's just hyzer flip, dead straight, so good on so many lines. Then because it's such a finesse driver, for beginners, it's one of the best starting drivers, because for slower arm speeds, it will fly similar to what like a distance driver would fly for like more advanced players. But it's finesse enough that it won't really hide a whole lot of your flaws, even if you're not throwing it super far. It's still fairly, relatively easy to turn over. Now, the reason I think that a lot of people don't throw it or might not get the love that a lot of other molds get is probably because the mold is just such an old mold. So they came out with the Escape. It was one of their 4 original molds back in 2012. And so they've been out for like 10 years. And I feel like a lot of the like popular stuff to throw is all the new stuff that's coming out, because there's a lot of great new discs that are coming out to the market. So something as old as like the Escape or the Trespass, for example, they're not as like sexy of molds because they're like 10 years old, and they're not like slightly overstable staples in people's bag like the Evader or the Felon would be. Because I bet if the Felon and the Evader came out in 2012, like it would still be a popular mold because people like those like slightly overstable staples in the bag. And that's why all the Innova staples like the Destroyer, T-Bird, Firebird are all still staples in people's bags, even though they're really old discs. But with the Supreme Escape, it's a little bit different. You see, the Supreme plastic is Latitude 64's Royal Grand plastic. It's the same plastic, same process, same all of that. But if you notice, Latitude 64 has made like all new molds in their Royal Grand plastic, and they've not made any of their old molds in the Royal Grand plastic. And the reason behind that is because the process is all different. Is now that the sun's blazing right into my face, they had to make completely new molds out of everything. So they couldn't really take a compass, for example, and just take that mold and bring it over to the new process. No, you have to make a whole new mold and process for that. And so technically, that's why this Escape is not exactly the same as this Escape. It's a whole retooled new mold. So DD is taking like a different approach than Latitude is, and they're going back to their 4 original molds and retooling them for this new Supreme plastic. And so I'm pretty pumped to check this out. The plastic feels just like you would expect it from the Royal Grand plastic. Feels really nice. Even in the cold, it's like 25 degrees out right now. It still has some give to it. Like it's not like rock solid like some of the Fusion plastic might be. And of course it has the nice swirls, and the tooling on the inside is really cool. I really like what they did with that. Like they just have little DD symbols all the way around on the inside ring here. It's really nice. But I am interested to see, like I've heard that this is more overstable than this one, but I want to know how much, because if it is too much more, then it might not be the best beginner disc. Like it might stick with the normal Lucid Escape, which, I mean, at the end of the day, beginners might want to do that anyway, just because the pricing of the Lucid plastic is going to be a lot cheaper than this Supreme plastic, because this is just a Supreme disc. All right, so not gonna lie, haven't been throwing well today, but I did get a few good throws of these to get a good picture of the flight. So granted, I think that my Lucid Escape here is a little bit overstable for Escapes. Like I have noticed that it's on the more stable side of Escapes. But it's interesting because I think this was supposed to be a little bit more stable for Escapes. And I think it might be, but in terms of my Lucid Escape here, I think that this was a little bit more stable than this Supreme one. Now, there could be a lot of factors for that. I wasn't throwing well today, so I could have just gotten really good throws with this because I've had it for longer, and then I just didn't throw this as well, or maybe the wind is variable the whole day. I don't know, but just from what I was throwing, this seemed a little bit more overstable than this Supreme one. Now so my phone just died because it was too cold, so I just sat here for about 15 minutes in the cold waiting for it to charge. But anyways, that's not really a bad thing about the Escape because it's just an amazing finesse driver. Like it's a little bit, I would say it's between like the Undertaker and the Era. So it's not as fast or as like distance driver feeling as the Era, but it's a little bit more finesse in my opinion, and it's a little bit faster than an Undertaker. So it requires you to have good form, and so it teaches you really well. And then when you do have good form, you can just shape this just to do whatever you want to do. Like I always tell people to start with this disc, and once you can just shape this on whatever line and play just about any course with it, then you're off to the races. You're in a really good spot in this sport. Then when you get those more stable stuff, you can just you just have a lot more options in the bag when you can learn to manipulate a disc really well, and this helps you learn that skill. These are awesome. They feel great, just like any other Royal plastic, and you should check them out if you're a fan of the Escape. And if you haven't tried one, I would at least try one. They're so good, so good. Anyways, got these at the store today at 11 o'clock Central Time, along with the Kona Panis Moonshine, Lucid X Moonshine, I think, Trespass, and then the Orbit Getaway from Mason Ford. So just got them in the store. Just check them out. But thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.